All right, we have we were talking about biology before. We have Dr. Michalos on the air right now. Doctor, thanks so much for waiting. A quick comment about living to 100. Other than being a Fed chairman, any tips on how to live that long?
Well, there are many tips, and one of the things, of course, you'll notice that he was actually a thinner person, so that's why we all have to strive to lose weight, stay thin, and that's why eating less often, intermittent fasting is one of the keys to longevity, and that forces our body to go into repair mode, because during those 16 hours where we're not eating, if we only eat between noon and 8, those people do a lot better, because during those 16 hours, your kidneys are resting, your gut is resting, your gut is focusing on immunity and cleanup. And of course, the Mediterranean diet has been proven over and over again. And they found that in the Mediterranean diet, there's a common denominator, which is the olive oil, which contains oleic acid. And oleic acid in olive oil and avocados turns on the longevity genes called the sirtuins. And recent literature even found that the oleic acid in olive oil and avocados also activate stem cells, which is pretty amazing. And another thing that all these people who have longevity, they found that in their gut microbiome, they have certain beneficial bacteria. When they analyze the gut, basically the poop of the people who are 100, there it's different, and it's healthier, and there's a more diverse and balanced gut microbiome in these people. And the other thing that in the recent literature they found is vitamin D turns out not to really be a vitamin but a hormone, and it actually keeps the little end caps on our DNA called the telomeres, and the longer they are, the longer you live. And they found that people who kept their D levels between like 50 and 75, those people had maintained longer telomeres. So vitamin D is also an anti-aging drug. So these are things we're finding out. That's why in the blue zones, they say that the common denominator is the olive oil, but also Loma Linda, California happens to be a blue zone. And then they figured out it's because they eat a lot of avocados. So those are some of the tips. And of course, sleep is critical. Sleeping on your side is more efficient, because that's when all the brain cleanup happens, and cleaning up the plaques and all the waste materials in the brain. And side sleeping is better, and those who sleep more. And obviously movement, we've shown that exercise and movement keeps our blood flowing and our vessels dilating, opening and closing. That's why you get hardening of the arteries when you're sedentary and your arteries don't open and close. But when you move or exercise, even if it's just after you eat, a quick 10-minute walk or even 150 minutes a week of movement, that helps keep our vessels moving, and healthy blood vessels are critical for anti-aging. And of course, having good relationships, good friendships, that's like having a built-in psychiatrist in your community. And a lot of these villages in the blue zones, they all hang out at the coffee shop, the men, the women, they talk, they go to church together, they go to synagogue together, mosque together, they pray together, and those people tend to do a lot better. But before I finish up, you guys have been talking a lot about Iran, and I was wondering if I can just comment 2 minutes about something historically. That we have to realize when you're dealing with Iran, it's actually 31 separate provinces, and each one of them has a different IRGC general, and it's broken up into 5 broad regions. And you think of Iran, we keep talking about it as this monolithic place, but actually it's broken up into several regions that don't get along. In the southeast, you have the Sunnis, where you have all the uprisings, and that's in Sistan and Baluchistan. And then in the western area, you have the Kurds, which are fighting for autonomy. And then you have an area, remember that Iran is not Sunni, it's a Shia country, unlike the other regions. And in Kazakhstan, they have the Arab minority, and that's in the oil-rich region, and they're always having issues over there. And then on the Caspian Sea, you have the Gilan region, which is where the left-wing progressive are, which most of the protests happen. And then you have Qom, Qom, where you have the area where all the theocracies and the basically the mullahs and the religious schools are. So Iran is just broken up. It's just like basically when you're dealing with them in these negotiations, It's like you're dealing with Montana, Texas, Florida, New York, California, and they all have different ideas. And that's one of the reasons why a lot of these things get slowed down, because they're broken up into so many regions with all this diversity, and they have different concerns. And I always remind people that in 600 AD, Iran was Zoroastrian, Afghanistan was Buddhist, and Egypt was 80% Coptic Christian. So these places have undergone a lot of changes, and that's why they fight with their neighbors, and nobody talks about it. It's also religious war. They are of the 12 books of the Shia sect, and all those surrounding countries that they've been attacking are all Sunni countries. So just so people understand that region a little bit better.
Doctor, we're dealing with a number of issues in addition to all the health and biological things you've just mentioned. There's stress going on in American life right now. I wasn't joking at the top of the 6 a.m. hour when I talked about how they're shutting down all the roads and New Jersey Transit for these games. I mean, that's an aspect of it also. I mean, the stress that people have, there's a psychological aspect to your health as well.
Absolutely. There's also electronic heroin, because we're looking at teenagers and teenage girls. The suicide rate is elevated, mental illness and anxiety, because they look at social media, they see how other people are living, they compare their lives, they feel like a loser because people are always showing, taking pictures of their food or where they're vacationing. And this instant gratification electronic heroin is doing damage to our youth. And right now in the city, there's a lot of stress because people have concerns. Whenever you have a mass migration event, and that's what the World Cup is, or even out in the Hamptons with the U.S. Open, you have all these people together, and there are, always concerns about safety. There's concerns about spread of diseases, TB. A lot of these things are on the rise. Measles is popping up again because there's so many unvaccinated people around the world for measles, which is very important. We're seeing a rise in TB. Nobody likes to talk about it, but Bellevue has a whole TB ward. And, every time you go on the subway, there are concerns. So all these life stressors, anxiety, and also financial stress. I have a tiny little house that was $2,300 a year in insurance, and now it's $6,300. So car insurance has doubled. So these are real issues that need to be addressed. And in New York, especially, it's gotten very expensive. And I talk to a lot of families, and I talk to seniors, and they're making decisions about, can I afford my medicine and my copays this month versus going shopping, or I'm not going to drive because I don't know if I can fill up my car. So all that adds stress, and we know that stress causes a rise in cortisol and epinephrine. Why do people get heart attacks when they're stressed out? Because in our ancient biology, our clotting system goes into overdrive, because in ancient times when we had stress, it was in anticipation of being attacked by a saber-toothed tiger or having trauma. So our clotting system would go into overdrive. So when men are stressed out over work and women are stressed out over work, and you wake up in the middle of the night thinking about all these things, that clotting system goes into overdrive in anticipation of trauma, and that's why you get more strokes and heart attacks and things like that. And speaking of that, the new guidelines came out. We want to keep our LDLs below 100. And one of the markers that you should ask your doctor to check, but a lot of them don't, but it's an important marker, is the apolipoprotein B, which is the carrier of cholesterol. And they found if you can keep that below 100, you dramatically decrease your risks of heart attack and strokes. And, of course, another thing for longevity is avoiding seed oils, because they're made with artificial things like hexane. So you want to stick to avocado oil, olive oil.
You have a new book coming out.
Yes, The Death
Tell
of
us
Aging.
about the new book, and when is it coming out?
The end of July. It's about 340 pages, and it summarizes all the.
And it's going to tell us how do we live to 100?
It's going to give us a lot of tips, because all the information is from all the centenarians.
Well, WABC is giving you a big book party.
what's really cool about it, we work with an AI gentleman who's like 30 years old in the Forbes Under 30. He developed an AI protocol, which is part of the book, where you put any topic in anti-aging into this AI section, and what it does is it searches and pulls up all the recent literature on that topic. So if you put metformin, which is a common diabetes drug made from French lilac that's been found to help with anti-aging and anti-cancer and actually anti-COVID, you put it in and it'll pull up all the recent literature on every topic and all the new literature. Like just the other day, a publication came out that since it's Alzheimer's month, that our copper-zinc ratio is critical in avoiding Alzheimer's disease. So there's a lot of new things that keep listening to WABC.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Michalos, because we got to take a break at 7:45. And thank you for keeping our listeners living longer.
Doctor, your advice was great. This is Fernando Mateo. I made notes of everything you said. I am fasting now for 16 hours a day. And if I don't live to 100, I'm going to come looking for you.
By the way, I do intermittent fasting too.
Okay.
I don't eat to, I only eat 8 hours a day. Yeah. Not before 12 and not after 8.
WABC, where every day is Yom Kippur. Doctor, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you, Doctor.
We're going to be right back with
Thank you, John and Margot.
Thank you so much.
Thanks for listening to Sid and Friends in the Morning. You can hear Sid and Friends in the Morning weekday mornings at 6. If you like the podcast, share it with your friends and listen anytime at WABCRadio.com and download the WABC Radio app. Hit that subscribe button on all major podcast platforms. Plus, follow WABC on social on Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, and X. See you next time for a new episode so you never have to wonder.
What the heck is going on here?